Everyone has to live somewhere, and everyone has to invest their money someplace. So what happens when where you live meets up with where your money is invested? Hello, real estate. Welcome back to Big Money Real Estate. I'm Ilyce. Here's your daily update. Trulia just published its biannual Rent versus Buy report, and in it they analyzed the cost of buying versus the cost of renting a home in the 100 largest metropolitan areas of the country, as well as some national figures. The report also goes into depth this year about the impact of homeowners association fees. And you know that I hear a whole lot about HOA fees. So I'm happy to welcome Trulia's housing economist, Ralph McLaughlin, to the show to discuss these numbers and the report's findings. Ralph, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's nice to have you on Big Money Real Estate. So, in your report, did you find that buying beats renting despite rising home prices?
Yes, despite the fact that home prices have actually outpaced rent growth over the past year, it is now slightly cheaper to buy than to rent than it was compared to this time last year.
Now, this is kind of amazing because when I talked to the former chief economist of Trulia, he thought that it would be buying all the way just until mortgage interest rates hit maybe 5%, 5.2%. And in fact, we've seen mortgage interest rates go entirely the opposite direction, and they're now at 3.87% today for a 30-year fixed from 4.5% last year. Is that the underlying reason that buying still beats renting?
Absolutely. While it's not the only factor, it is one of the biggest factors. So despite prices outpacing rents over the past year, the fact that interest rates have gone down from 4.5 to 3.87% means that it is increasingly a better deal to buy than to rent.
Now, what about home prices and how fast those are growing in some marketplaces? Are there any markets where it's still so much more expensive? It's more expensive to buy because home prices are so much more than they were a year ago.
That's correct. So on average, in the entire United States, home prices have increased about 3.9% year over year. But again, that's a national average, so it masks what's going on in individual markets. In places in the West Coast and also in Florida, prices have grown quite significantly higher than 3.9%. In fact, in some areas like here in the Bay Area or Los Angeles or South Florida, year-over-year price increases have been between 10 and 15%.
Okay. So overall, buying a home is 33% cheaper than renting nationwide?
That's correct.
Where is it? Is there any place around the country where it's cheaper to rent?
No. In fact, in all of the 100 largest metropolitan areas, it is cheaper to buy than it is to rent. However, depending on where you are in the country, the call can be a bit closer. So, for example, in places like Honolulu and New York and some places out here in California, it is slightly better to buy than to rent. But there are other factors that households will have to take into account when deciding whether it actually is cheaper. So, for example, how many years you stay in your house, what percent you itemize your property taxes at, and other things like how much of a down payment you can put down on your house.
So how does HOA fees, how do those factor into the calculus?
So we did our analysis separately. We did analysis one without HOA fees and one with the median HOA fees. And in fact, in some of the markets where it is a closer call to buy than to rent, it actually tips the favor in favor of renting. So places like Honolulu are around 16% cheaper to buy versus rent without HOA fees. But when we include HOA fees, it actually makes it 1% cheaper to rent than to buy.
How does it work, these numbers, for investors? So they're actually buying, but then they're going to rent them out. So where does it fall for them?
So investors would have to take that into account when considering their overall investment budget and especially ongoing costs. And in some markets, HOA fees can add up to anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000 a year, depending on the level of HOA fee. So, for example, in places like New York, where the median HOA fee is $575 a month, that can amount to quite a bit more costs associated with investment than in, say, a market where HOA fees are quite low. So, for example, Sacramento, the median HOA fee is only $20, so that is a much smaller cost out of pocket per year for an investor than in places like New York.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Ralph McLaughlin is a housing economist at Trulia. Ralph, will you come back again? I know Trulia does a lot of really good reports. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Okay. And thank you for watching this episode of Big Money Real Estate. You can send your real estate investing questions to me on Twitter and Facebook. Hey, check out my Intentional Investor series, How to Be Wildly Successful in Real Estate, at WitNation Store, and you can just click on my name, or at thinklinkstore.com. And be sure to share this video all around. Until next time, I'm Ilyce Glink.